Hi, Bloody Recapped here. Today I'm going to explain a horror film, Sea Fever. Please support the channel by subscribing and liking. Our goal is to get the first 1,000 subscribers in the shortest possible time. Keep your eyes open and stay focused. Siobhan finds some parasites on the seabed, but the professor forces her to go sailing or he won't give her credit for her thesis. She also asks her to find friends, because she can't survive on her own. She is already waited for by Johnny the sailor, who invites her on deck, but she wonders if it is worth it, when suddenly Johnny's Aunt Kira appears behind her. She says that she should jump without a second thought and asks Johnny to help the girl down. Gerard and Freya are chatting on the captain's bridge. They're going to need their luck this route, but it's not yet known why. Siobhan arrives and meets the bosses of the ship. The girls are left alone and Freya asks Gerard to talk to Omid, who in the meantime with Sudi checks the technical condition of the ship. When Gerard arrives, he promises to return the money after this trip out to sea. Notwithstanding that Omid is about to have a baby, he will definitely get the money. Siobhan tells him what she is doing. She needs nothing more or less to take pictures of their catch and not go deep underwater. But Freya replies that they don't swim. On deck, Sudi is not very happy with Siobhan, because a redhead on a ship is bad luck. But Gerard has already spent her money, so they have to take her. Johnny brings Siobhan to the cabin, where she is surprised to see so few beds, and Johnny explains that while one shift is working you can sleep for a couple of hours, but Siobhan is not happy about it, because lack of sleep causes psychosis and it is very unhealthy. At this time Freya and Gerard, praying to the Almighty to return safely to the harbor, and kissing a pendant with a picture of their daughter Niamh, whom they named after the daughter of the sea god. Her galley figure is on the bow of their ship. They receive a rundown on the fish with good news, which Gerard is only too happy about. In the technical area of the ship, Siobhan wonders about the water filtration system Omid invented. She wonders if such a brilliant engineer is looking for a job worthy of his status, but he replies that he is waiting for the right moment. Aunt Kira shows Siobhan her workplace and asks why she is wearing a hat. But when Siobhan reveals that she is a redhead, Aunt Kira of course gets angry, but asks her to take off her hat. She will not be sailing in a hat all the time. Meanwhile, on the captain's bridge, the operators report an emergency exclusion zone, which is where Gerard was headed. They still ask to fish, but the operator replies that there are many whales with calves there now, so it is strictly forbidden, and lays out a new route for them. When night falls, Siobhan finds the entire crew at the table, but for some reason does not want to sit with them, and went to bed where he chews a candy bar. A couple of days later, Gerard and Freya notice 2 whales on the starboard side, but Siobhan explains that whales do not swim with ships, they like silence. Something is wrong here, but the crew assures them that whales are a good sign. On the radar, the captain sees the whales approaching very quickly. A collision occurs. Gerard asks Omid what the damage is, and Omid only calls out to Siobhan. He shows her something that deforms the wood of the ship. The ship collides with something and Freya tries to contact the other ships on the radio, which crashed after the collision, and she sees on the map that Gerard has led them into a restricted area. Siobhan tries to figure out what it is, but when Omid talks about a chemical leak and Siobhan immediately leaves. She comes into the kitchen, but answers everyone that they don't know what's going on yet. And while Freya calls Gerard a fool, Siobhan spoons the strange liquid and collects it for future analysis. And when Gerard comes to them to ask what's going on, he tears off a piece of wood and there turns out to be some kind of critter, which he calls clams. And since Siobhan wanted to dive, let her get them off the boat as well. Johnny helps her pack up and Gerard only gives her a knife to cut the fish for protection. A dive takes place and she notices something sucking on the ship. She tries to cut one of them off, but Omid knocks her to stop, and while black blood is coming out of the creature, the exact same ones appear behind her and try to attack. But Siobhan dodges and notices something huge on the bottom dissolving these long creatures. She dives out and returns to the ship, and when she tells what she saw, the fishermen mistake it for a huge squid and are about to catch it with a net. Siobhan doesn't think this is right. They should call for help. But Freya explains to her that they will lift the squid and it won't be able to hold its weight and let the ship go and they will sail away. But a little later, when Johnny pulls the winch, the ship begins to lurch, and Gerard gives the command to stop the winch. Johnny stops her and heads for Siobhan, but his hand gets chewed up in the winch. Omid stops her, and Johnny's hand is covered in blood. Siobhan picks up the purse that Johnny dropped, which leaves a trail of blood and tentacle slime on her hands, and she spots a ship in the distance, which she reports to Gerard and Freya. It turns out to be a large industrial ship that can help them, but Gerard is angry that if they are rescued, the profits will have to be split. The ship sends an SOS signal, but no response follows. Because of this, the crew decides who will go to the ship for help. Johnny, Siobhan, and Gerard are going there, and while Omid is on the ship plugging holes from which slime falls, the crew climbs into the ship, but there is silence. The men find a great net, and Siobhan checks the radio, which has been smashed on purpose, but she doesn't understand why. Johnny asks her to listen, but Siobhan hears nothing, which is the point. Gerard opens the hatch and sends Johnny first. Siobhan heads after the men. Siobhan finds an empty canister, and then in the cabin they find the men dead and cut up. Gerard thinks it's the seasickness they went crazy from, but Siobhan finds a man without eyes, which Gerard can no longer explain. He only asks her not to tell anyone about it. At this time on their ship, something happens and the dead animals sink to the bottom. Gerard returns to the ship and informs them that that crew has their own problems, and Freya starts the ship, which begins to sail. Then the creature lets them go. They go on their way. Siobhan realizes that something is wrong here, because the predator does not let its victims just like that, which means that it has released poison or some kind of protective fluid. Omid thinks that they just injured it when they lifted it with the winch. Gerard informs them that something huge is moving towards them. Freya doesn't want to risk asking to go home, but Gerard reminds them that if they go back, they will have to say goodbye to the ship as they don't have any more money. Freya gives the command to lower the net. They have caught a huge amount of fish, which they have salted and unloaded, at the same time discussing what they will spend the money on, and Johnny is already terribly tired. On the ship there is still liquid of unknown origin dripping from the ropes, and Siobhan asks Johnny if it is always so creepy here, but he says it is the first time. He is going to give her advice to distract and rest. She asks what she should do, and when he realizes that she is flirting with him, they are going to kiss, but the guys come. Johnny should be on kitchen duty, where Siobhan comes to see him. At the table, she notices Johnny has a fever, but he turns it into a joke and makes a toast to Siobhan. Johnny whispers to Siobhan let's swim and leaves the table. She tells everyone this, and Auntie and Siobhan go after him. They try to stop him and bring him back to the table, where the whole crew mistakes him for a lunatic. Siobhan asks to see his eyes, where a worm slips into his pupil. When Gerard sees her reaction, he asks to let him look, but he sees nothing. Sooty is downstairs taking a shower and Johnny is washing his face, but suddenly he starts grunting in pain. He says he can't see anything, and then his eyes fill with blood and burst, and many maggots fly out into the sink and flush into the water supply while Sooty is still washing downstairs. When Siobhan raises her hands, there is a bloody mess on Johnny's face. She asks everyone not to touch anything and calls everyone into the hallway. Siobhan tells him that there were parasites in his eyes that got into the water. Freya leaves to shut off the water, and the guys remember that Sooty is taking a shower. Omid asks him to stop, but all in vain. The first parasites are already falling on him and Siobhan shuts off the water. He gets angry and liquid comes out of the shower head. When they open the door, they find a bloodied Sooty, and the aunt is mourning her nephew. The men take his body to the freezer, and Siobhan reads literature, and when she realizes she may have lost her first and last friend, she begins to cry. At night, the crew comes to check the water filters, where they see holes in the nets that have been gnawed by parasites. Siobhan wonders where the water drains. Omid comes running in and shuts off the valve, but Siobhan asks to open the hatch so she can figure out what it is. There's liquid spewing out, but Siobhan thinks it's maggots. At the table, Siobhan tells her that in fresh water the sea larvae will die in a few hours. When Omid wonders what was said on that ship, Siobhan tells her that everyone there is dead, and Gerard again reinforces this theory of seasickness. Today Siobhan is on duty. Omid takes Sooty to bed where he is hysterical because he doesn't want to die. Siobhan has a nightmare where she falls into the water, after which Omid calls her. They check the water hatch, which turns out to be a broken strainer. Omid thinks they might chew up their tank at this rate, but Siobhan replies that there are fewer of them and they are getting weaker. It won't be long now. The crew prays for future salvation. Gerard asks Omid to get them home faster, even if they have to burn the engine. And when Siobhan sees traces of parasites from Omid, she goes back to her bag and pulls out microscopes to examine, but she is called names by Sudi, who thinks it's all about her red hair. But she runs away and tells the captain that it's not parasites, it's mucus that the organism secreted. He mistook their ship for an animal, probably a whale, so there are eggs in the mucus. They're all still alive. They can all get infected like Johnny did or already have, through open wounds. They are going to destroy them with a liquid unknown to us. But Siobhan remembers the same empty container on the dead men's ship and says it won't help. Siobhan asks Omid to make an ultraviolet. Under its intense light, the sea creature's eggs burn. They make ultraviolet from the phone, but the light is not enough, and they will arrive in 30 hours, by which time they will all be infected. Siobhan has another silly idea. They are going to electrocute the ship using seawater as a conductor to burn the sea creature's eggs. If they wear rubber boots, nothing will happen, and Omid will try to isolate the engines. After much deliberation and rejection, Freya nevertheless agrees to take the risk and helps the guys pour water over the vessels. Freya thinks this is crazy, but gives the command to get started. Siobhan fails and the generator fails. She gives the wire to Omid, and when he touches the water, the rostra bursts. Freya cries over the burns on Niev and returns to the bridge. Siobhan studies the slime and Freya tries to stop Sudi from bleeding. She goes to Siobhan and asks if she was able to destroy them. Siobhan tells her yes, and they will come ashore if they are not infected. Freya thinks they're all fine, but Siobhan explains that Johnny's symptoms appeared after 36 hours, so they will have them after the same time. Freya is not going to accept this theory, and then Siobhan gives the example of Christmas Island, which had the largest population of red crabs. But when some yellow ants got to the island, all crabs went blind and soon died out. The same could happen to them too. Also, if they are infected, they can't go ashore because they will spread it all over the world. But Freya still stands her ground and thinks she will be right if she only cures Sudi. Then Siobhan decides to talk to the only sane person on the ship, Omid, but he also wants to go ashore soon, and the fact that he might infect 200,000 people does not interest him. At this point, Sudi realizes he can't see anymore and becomes hysterical, and then he shuts up altogether. The guys take his body to the freezer, and then just pray and pray again. As everyone disperses, Siobhan notices a weakening in her aunt and Gerard's vision. Siobhan begs them to quarantine her, but everyone acts selfish. After Gerard shouts, she leaves and examines the workings of the propeller, and when Omid, who inquires about her, leaves, Siobhan throws a rope at him to stop the ship. Omid realizes what she has done and drags her to the cabin, where she tells him what she has done and gets hit by her aunt. Freya doesn't understand what is wrong with her, but she reiterates that they may be infected and there will be no help for them. Quarantine is inevitable. She asks them to finally take responsibility for their actions, which in the future could kill all their family and children. In the bedroom, Gerard is crying because he realizes that everything is his fault, but Freya wants to calm him down and let him know that he is not the only one to blame. While Siobhan examines herself after the blow, Freya asks to have them examined like Johnny, because she saw parasites in his eyes. During the examination, everyone turns out to be clean, but Freya finds parasites in Gerard's eyes, and he admits that he was the one who changed course, making the crew angry at him. When everyone disperses, the aunt apologizes to Siobhan, but notices her strange behavior and runs away. Freya and Gerard sit in the bedroom hoping to see their daughter Niev at least one last time, but her aunt grabs Siobhan's leg, and when she tries to break free, accidentally pushes her down and she falls, hitting her head. When she checks her pulse, Omid comes in and a parasite falls out of her eye, which Omid immediately starts stomping on. Siobhan heads to Freya, but when she runs up to the bedroom, it is too late. She has killed Gerard. Freya goes to get help in the lifeboat and leaves Siobhan and Omid on the ship to herself. But as they are dragging the body into the freezer, they hear a noise going on in the ship. It turns out to be the sounds from the hatch. Siobhan builds a theory that they can let the current flow through the tank, but with fresh water this will not work. Then she realizes if they live in fresh water, it is a rare organism that is deep sea, and therefore harden to the pressure, and at the bottom is cold. It turns out he cannot tolerate heat. If they heat the tank, the organism itself will leave the ship and go into the wild. The organism is just in the wrong environment and trying to survive. They just have to help it get out. They heat up the tank and then open it. Tentacles come out, and when Omid tries to strike, his foot falls down, and then the creatures themselves leave the tank through a hole in the bottom. The guys realize that the ship is sinking and begin to gather food and take substances to make a signal fire. They set the ship on fire as a signal fire, and Siobhan descends into the dinghy, and Omid admits that he can't swim and is afraid. But he goes down anyway and accidentally falls into the water. Siobhan tries to pull him out, but something drags him to one. She jumps after him and frees him from the creepy tentacles. Then they get to the top and climb into the lifeboat, and Omid notices the rescue ship. She notices that she is infected, and Omid tries to put a tourniquet on it to stop the virus from spreading. But Siobhan realizes that nothing will help her and asks Omid to hold on. But she herself jumps off the lifeboat into the water, heading straight for the creature. After a while, luminous tentacles pop up around Omid, and he waves to the rescue ship. Support the channel by subscribing, like, and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.